JP and I spent 3 days training fitness and firearms with the guys from Triple Feed out in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, we actually recorded this 2-part episode on the mats at Cascao BJJ. Now, this was after a roll session and a full day of CQB instruction. Now, if you don't know what CQB training looks like, or maybe you're just curious and you want to find out, you can roll over to the Iron Sights YouTube channel to see what we did and how we did it inside the shoot house and beyond. We had a ton of fun. Now, in this first of 2 episodes, JP and I spend time uncovering the extraordinary stories and the diverse backgrounds of Bryan, Luis, and Gerry. We talk about gangbanging, getting deported, joining law enforcement, being in a rock band, killing bad guys in Afghanistan, some executive protection, and ultimately how passion, persistence, and hustle brought these 3 together to ultimately create Triple Feed. It was a great time with a ton of laughs. And these are 3 truly amazing guys that we formed a really special bond with. We hope you enjoy listening to them because we had a ton of fun hanging out with them. Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. This is the episode I've certainly been waiting for. I know JP's been excited to finally get here. We're here with the boys from Triple Feed. Boys, welcome to the show.
What up?
What up?
Appreciate you, brother.
We got Bryan, Luis, and Gerry, and my good friend JP here. We've had like an outstanding couple of days. I mean, there was a lot of anticipation for JP and I coming into this week and this weekend, just with all the things that we thought we'd probably get from this experience, well beyond my expectations.
Yeah, definitely enjoyable and learned a lot.
Well, from our behalf, we definitely appreciate you guys coming out. I know it's a long drive, and you guys had no sleep. And you guys have been crushing it every single part of the way, so we appreciate that.
Here's the thing, they never say that about me, and I drive the same distance.
It's way less, I promise.
I appreciate you guys. It's 4 hours, okay?
So
six in traffic.
Yeah, to give context to that, we are actually in Las Vegas, Nevada. So for those of you that are watching, we are in Cascao Jiu-Jitsu studio here in Las Vegas. Thank you to Walter Cascao for hosting us and having us. We were able to spend some time here with one of the resident black belts, Kevin. We got to roll around a little bit at the end of today. It was fantastic, but it's a fantastic facility. So if you guys are in Las Vegas and you want to check out an outstanding jiu-jitsu facility, this is the spot. So shout out to Cascao. The best part about this is I love working off location because I think it brings kind of a new vibe, and being in other people's environments, I think it just brings something spicy to the table. And I think there's probably going to be a little bit of that on today's ep, especially after the things we've gone through. So, so to kind of just jump right in here, I mean, for those people that know who you guys are, and we're definitely going to dig into that, they know there's a lot of personality in this group, right? There's a lot of personality. There's a ton of knowledge and a lot of diversity in the backgrounds, and I want to get into that a little bit. But first, like, to give some I guess some insight to kind of some of the things we've been doing. JP, like, we rolled in on whatever it was, like at 2 a.m. on, I guess that would have been Friday morning.
Yeah, it was like 3 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were already out on the range at 8 a.m.
Fitness Factory.
Yeah, the Fitness Factory. That's
Fitness
right.
Factory at 8. Yeah.
We showed up at the Fitness Factory.
There's always a guy that walks in 15 minutes late and then walks out like 45 minutes too soon.
All the education I got from these guys are amazing ones they couldn't do.
He definitely was the sweatiest one there. I'll tell you that much.
So his small 10-minute stint in that gym, that non-jiu-jitsu gym, was the longest he's ever been in a gym in his life.
I thought he was in and out. I mean, legitimately, I did not see him there for more than a few seconds.
Yeah, we had a good time. I mean, thanks to Jay over at Fitness Factory. Jay and I hadn't connected in nearly 15 years. He's a guy that used to work sort of indirectly with and for me back in my previous life and sort of the commercial corporate fitness world. And that's one of the other great things about this trip is just connecting with awesome people. But I'll say it on every podcast. The fitness industry has just allowed me so much opportunity to connect with amazing people. And what I find, there's a lot of parallels kind of working into the genre that we're going to talk about tonight, and the types of people, the drive that they have, specifically with regard to taking care of themselves, taking care of their families, taking care of the people around them, and the entrepreneurship that oftentimes comes with that type of attitude and approach. And so we'll get into that a little bit too. But thanks to Jay over at Fitness Factory. Thanks for the workout, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We got into it a little bit, got sweaty. Yeah, and then we were out on the range. I mean, and we were out. Not only were we out on the range, we were out on the range till like, what, 9 o'clock, something like that at night.
It was pretty late.
Yeah, it was pretty late. It was probably like 7 or something like that. But yeah, it was a long day for sure. I think we had like 2 hours, but it was well worth it.
It was dragging ass by the end of the day. Because again, a lot of energy in this group. You guys were pulling us through and dragging us through kind of the end. And I appreciate that.
I think we were all feeding off of each other at the end of the day. It's like I saw Luis's face, B-Dub's face, all of our faces, and we go, we're tired, but let's just keep going.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like,
I don't think we knew you guys were running on that low sleep till like the end or close to the end, and they were like, "What? Oh, badass."
you know what though? They still decided to go out with us and throw back a drink. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so power to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, as they say, you'll sleep when you're dead. Like, I think we almost died. But, it's close. It was close. But, I think the thing we probably should do first is for those people that don't know you guys, to kind of give some background on each one of you, and we'll kind of go down that path. And then for those people that do know you guys, like probably most of what they know about you is what they see through social media. I mean, Triple Feed's a media company, so you guys are out there and kind of out front, but they might not know some of the things I think they're going to share. I mean, I've learned a lot about you guys, but I'm anxious to learn a little bit more as we just kind of talk about the individuals. So maybe we could just break that down and start with Luis, and just kind of give us a little bit of your history, kind of how you got to where you're at now, and how we're here.
Yeah, well, I mean, my gun journey truly started about 8 years ago. About 8 years ago, I've always loved guns growing up. You know, I'm only 32, so it's not too long. Not too long of an experience, but I started with a holster company. I made holsters out of my garage for a while, and then got picked up by a local company here, and I started doing holsters at their shop, from my own business.
These are like Kydex holsters.
Holsters before Kydex was even cool. Like literally, it was just how to bend plastic.
Okay.
And make holsters, and it was going really well for me. And then I learned how to stipple guns, and I started doing all the stippling and doing all this crazy work on it. And then I got teamed up with a local school here, and for 5 years I worked with them full time and got to do a lot of cool shit.
So school, define school, like what are we talking about?
They do military law enforcement and executive protection training, and it's a school. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a lot of training, but got to do a lot of cool shit, a lot of cool people. I actually got to meet these guys through that school, and ever since that we've kicked it off, and I've learned everything that I could, and I like to keep going forward with that. But that's pretty much it. I'm just a civilian. I'm no one special, not at all. Like, I haven't done anything cool like Brian. I haven't done anything cool like Gerry or you guys. I work with a lot of cool people. I do executive protection, and I work with people that nobody knows.
You shouldn't play yourself short either. I mean,
I
you're
was
an
just gonna
instructor too. You know a lot. You know a lot.
Yeah, I'm not nobody. You know, my social media isn't what Gerry's is or JP's is.
Which
so.
it's nothing. By the way.
Yeah.
100% nothing. But I like to keep it that way. You know, back in my old days, I was in a band, and we were pretty cool. So back then it was like Facebook and MySpace.
Yeah.
And I had like over 100,000 followers.
No shit.
Back in the day.
What type of music were we talking?
Like hardcore music.
Like, come on, define hardcore. What's that? Like hardcore jazz? Hardcore classical? Like,
You know, Skin Flip kind of stuff.
Okay, all right.
dude.
There's
No
the
wonder why
real
you had
Luis is
100,000
coming out
followers.
now.
This is
It's
the-
only going to
It's
take a
starting.
few minutes.
This is
No.
the hidden aspect of him that when he told me, like a few months into knowing him, I was like, yeah, shut the hell up.
Literally a lot of YouTube videos of me knocking people out in the pit.
That's awesome.
It's pretty stupid. But yeah, I toured and I played lots of local music here, and that was what I did. And I sold T-shirts. That's how I made a living.
You hustled.
And, yeah, I sold T-shirts and I hung TVs while I was on tour, and that's how we got by. So that's why we started Triple Feed with T-shirts. Like I knew how to sell them. You know what I mean? I knew where to get them to make market out of them.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Hasn't photography and videography always been your passion too? Like,
Yeah,
it's been a
I've
big
done
thing.
photography and videography. Yeah, I've had my own little media company for a long time as well. Probably more than 9 years now. Like ever since I was 18, actually.
But he's a normal guy.
Yeah, so
Normal guy.
yeah, he's starting to contradict everything you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
said a minute ago about
Yeah,
being
come
like
on,
just
man.
basic. I haven't done anything cool. That's bullshit. Like there's a lot of cool shit here. So hold on. So did the media thing or the camera thing, right? The media thing, was that part of the music? Was that part of the band? Was that before the band?
That was 100% part of the band, just because you want to document that stuff. And then growing up, doing skateboarding and biking, mountain biking, like we filmed everything. Like I have archives of stupid stuff and it's funny stuff. We had stupid skits and we made videos, like stupid jackass videos. But we're not jackass. We suck like we are. But,
Right.
But, yeah, so I've always had a camera in my hand growing up, and I learned how to make money out of it growing up. So I did that for a while, and I did the whole, the maternity photos, the couple photos, the family photos, and I still have a lot of good clients that I've done for a long time, and thank you guys for that.
Yeah.
But they return, and every year they call me up, hey, I need some family photos, and I do them. I sometimes don't even charge them. Like it's just like I like to do. You've been a customer for a long time. Let's go do your family photos for you. But yeah, again, I know we're all technically a high speed company, you would think, but I'm nobody. Like I'm just a normal dude. Like,
Yeah, you keep saying that, and I think we'll talk more. And again, you'll continue to contradict yourself for the rest of the evening, and these guys are going to prove
make
me
us call
right
you
on
out.
that.
Yeah.
And I love being right, by the way. But it does speak to like the entrepreneurship and those experiences, because the experiences that you've had and the grinding at an early time in your life and exploring the art piece, the music piece, going on the road, touring, having to hustle for T-shirts. The shit that you learn while you're doing that is invaluable, and it's going to be very different in compare and contrast to the two guys sitting to your right and left, right? In terms of maybe how they learned and how they had to grind.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. Is this guy wasn't born. No, well, I would now work for one, but no. What I'm saying is he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So, like he's had to hustle, and because of it, he's built a work ethic.
I can share my full background. I mean, I don't mind.
Thought you did.
Very, very proud of where I've come from. So
Why are you holding back?
I'm not.
Let's do it.
I'm just saying. Well, when I was 6 months, I was born in Mexico, not born here. When I was 6 months, my
Now we're getting somewhere.
family migrated to the United States, and my parents obviously were undocumented. They got documented not until I was 19, and then once my dad became a citizen, my mom became a citizen, they were able to put me under there, and I didn't have my citizenship till I was 21. Yeah, until I was 21, and I was touring, driving cars illegally. Like that's how I hustled.
Okay.
I wasn't able to get a true job, so I made my job. You know what I mean? Like I paid my taxes though. I come from that Hispanic immigration side, but the way I view immigration is completely opposite of what you would think. Like
Expand.
I think you should do it the right way. The way
There's
I
a
did it.
process.
Yeah, it's a process, and it's expensive, and it's a grind. Like I got kicked out of this country, and I had to spend. I've never been to Mexico prior to this. I had to spend a whole year with family that I don't even know. But it was actually pretty cool because I found out that my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family, polar opposites. My dad's side of the family is like they have the one chicken coop and they make by. My mom's side of the family, they're like super fucking rich. Super rich. So who do I hang out with? I went to the beaches. I did all the fun stuff while I was out in Mexico. So it was more of a vacation, not a punishment. But I had to suffer for that because I was still away from my girlfriend, away from my family, away from my normal world that I knew. But I did my time, I would say, and I got my citizenship, and now we're here.
All right,
So,
that explains.
I've hustled from very young, so.
That explains. So at the end of the day, like I get you as a guy who is very analytical about the moves he's making and the things that we're doing, like minute to minute, but he's also very planned. Like he's already knows what he's going to be doing in the next hour or the next week or the next month. And I want to talk about the future of Triple Feed and that dynamic and what you're thinking specifically, how you want to do it. But that answers a lot of questions for me. Like I knew there was something else there, like as we've been kind of hanging out the last couple of days in terms of what I know about you, Gerry, and you, Bryan, and where this guy fits into the mix. That's gold right there, man. Like I get it. Like it's pretty invaluable experience.
And now what I'm doing, I just got picked up from another executive protection company.
Yeah, EP, yeah.
Yeah, and then I work for a company called NRG. We did that the Instagram Live.
Fantastic company. Yeah, great group of guys that are in NRG.
They're awesome people. But I'm working for them part-time, helping them out, doing a lot of, Chris owns a lot of different companies, and I'm helping him out in pretty much in almost all the companies. I like to have a foot in each one of them. But yeah, it's going great. I have 6 different jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so different. Like that might sound really weird to people listening right now, right? Like they work their whole life to get one job, and then they learn they fucking hate it, and they don't know what to do next, right? So they go out and get another job that they hate, and you're doing 6 jobs, and you've always done that. Yeah, it's cool. It's normal.
It's so funny because my wife I saw this meme that came across my Instagram, and I'm all about the memes, but it said, "Queen, 2 incomes isn't enough. Make sure your man has 2 incomes," and basically meaning like,
Go get another job.
I
Yeah.
think she's like, yeah, let's take that. But yeah, she's a stay-at-home mom. I have a little 4-month-old, 5-month-old now, right?
Are you asking him?
I've been calling my 6-month-old 4 months for like the last 3 months. Math is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a little 5-month-old, our new addition to our family, and she's freaking killing it being mom, and I'm hustling, but that work-life balance is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I help her out a lot. I think she might not think things, but
When they're 5 months old, man, they want their moms all the time. So yeah. So, hey, you guys gotta figure that shit out on your own. I ain't got no advice.
She's great. We have a great relationship.
Yeah.
Little kid's awesome. So
Right on. Cool.
Great addition. Again, I'm just like
Okay, I got you.
way cooler than that.
Well, look at that hair.
Well, he's more handsome too. So
And he's way more rough.
Yeah.
just saying.
It's fanboy in you, JP. I love that. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. Let's move on to you, Bryan. Like you've got to me, I'm gonna be honest. Like what Luis just shared is impressive to me. I'm always impressed by people that have the grind, right? And they have a drive that's sort of instilled in them kind of early, and then they have to go through some shit. You got to sleep on some couches. You got to suffer, sleep in a van, down by the river or whatever it is.
My goal is still to have a travel van and have.
Yeah, it's so funny that you want to get back to that. Like once you,
It's so peaceful.
yeah.
Great. I love it.
So very different background, Bryan. I mean, I don't know what your childhood was like, but from a professional perspective, very different background. And so maybe you can kind of take us back to wherever you want to start. I mean, I want to hear about the professional stuff at a little deeper level, but who's Bryan from Triple Feed?
Well, since Luis covered a little bit,
Yes, that's what he is.
yeah, the running joke is, "Hey, white guy, we got some white guy stuff for you to do." That's typically
You could write the emails for us, man. 'Cause I'm not good at that. I'm sorry.
Gerry is the worst speller I've ever seen.
No, that's
I love
Luis and I are the worst spellers. Okay, ESL, baby.
Text talk, and I'm like, like, well, your accent sucks.
Role
Yeah,
player.
Siri doesn't like a
Role
Mexican
player.
accent. I'm sorry, dude.
So I had a completely vanilla childhood. It was just completely whatever. I played sports, did school. That was it. And I really have no non-professional background after graduating high school. So I graduated high school May of 2003, and I entered the Air Force November of 2003.
Okay.
So right out of high school, bam. And I get the question a lot, like, oh, how did you know you wanted to go to the military, blah, blah. I mean, ask anybody from my kindergarten class, and they all would have said he's going to the military. I don't know what it was. I was just attracted to it as far back as I can possibly remember.
Family in it?
Just distant relatives. My
Okay.
grandfather was in the Navy. My dad's side uncle was in the Army. But, like, I mean,
Was this pre or post 9/11?
them being in the military?
No,
Well,
when
obviously
you
them.
signed up.
Oh, I signed in 03. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
after 9/11, yeah, for sure. So
I mean,
yeah,
was that an influence?
No, I don't know. I don't know if it was I was just attracted to the Hollywoodism of the military or
Okay.
whatever I had seen based on, whatever. I don't know. I honestly don't know where it came from. It just was always there.
So
I
JP
can't-
and I have talked about this a little bit, just kind of like about the sensationalization of, or kind of this fascination. Maybe that's the right word, fascination, or
Well, the influence that you get from like media.
in the cinema.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So like for me, like John Wick is what turned me on to shooting, and like another guy that we talked to, that's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, Raul. He said like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies got him turned on to like karate, and that's where it started.
Yeah.
And so like it seems to be like a common theme with people that we talk to, including myself, that like movies or shows or something like that like inspires career paths.
Did you have something like that, B-Dub, that like romanticized being in the military?
I cannot like pinpoint.
That's the word I was looking
Like-
for, romanticize. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have a
Well done.
romanticized.
They have a bromance.
Me from a civilian side, I same way, like just like watching some epic movies. I'm like, I want to know how to shoot.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but not to plan off.
So you joined the Air Force, right? And people expected that to happen, and you did it. So then what?
So I'll touch on this because this is very important. Again, another question I get is, well, why the Air Force? Okay, so I already knew I wanted to go into, and I'm going to say special fill in the blank because there's so many special forces, special operations, blah, 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 blah. There's so many of the soft special operations forces. There's so many under that category, under the umbrella of special operations command. Anyway, so I say that to say I didn't go into the Air Force to travel. I wasn't going to go in the military to like
Go to school, the GI Bill.
refuel
all
a
that.
jet or go into the Army and be a diesel truck driver. Like, no, I specifically was like, I'm going to the military and I'm going to go do some cool stuff.
I want to
and
do
I'm-
stuff.
I want to be special fill in the blank. And again, at that point, I was in high school. I didn't know crap about the military other than what I've just read and seen. So, yeah, so the biggest hyped up special fill in the blank is Navy SEALs, right? Because they have 8,000 books, they have 8,000 movies.
They are popular.
The list goes on, right? So
They have nice hair too.
almost as nice as JP.
Cool gear.
So,
The
as an
ponytails.
18-year-old impressionable kid, I was like, Dad, we're going to the Navy recruiter. He's like, all right, let's go. Went to the Navy recruiter. And again, this is 03. So I'll talk about why that's important as well. So I went to the Navy recruiter and I was like, hey, I want to be a SEAL. After the guy stopped laughing at me because I was like $140, like I played soccer and ran track in high school, like, I'm gonna be this Navy SEAL. And he's like, cool, all right, well, you're gonna have to sign this contract to go open general, and Navy's gonna put you at the needs of the Navy. You'll probably be on a ship for a couple years, and then I don't know, 2-3 years, you put in a package, and if you get accepted, then you go to BUDS, and if you pass BUDS, you got a 2-year selection course before you're on a team. And I'm like doing the math, and I'm like so 6 because again, the global war on terror is in its heat, right? It's heating up big time.
Big
It was
time.
2003, the end of 2003. So 2001 happened. I freaking just like all of us probably, I watched it happen. My teacher brought in a big box television, plugged it in, and said, "Everybody watch this. This is history." We watched it happen. That I was already going to go in, but that just solidified I'm doing special operations to some degree. So anyway, so the Navy path, he's like, and I'm like, all right, it's gonna be 6 years before I see any combat overseas or whatever. And that, like I said, that's what I wanted to do. That's why I wanted to go in. So I was like, all right, cool, man. I'll hit you up later, maybe. So we walked out of there, and I was like, all right, what's the next most hyped, coolest thing? Again, I'm 18, I don't know crap. I'm like, Green Beret, boom, Army recruiter. I walked 5 feet right into the Army recruiter door, like most recruiters are right next. I don't know why they do that. So I walked in there, and I'm like, I want to be Green Beret. After the guy stopped laughing, he's like, all right, cool, you're gonna sign this contract, you're gonna go in as whatever, you're gonna be a cook, whatever you want to do, you know, or not whatever, I want to do whatever the Army wants you to do.
Whatever I want you to do.
Exactly, right? And he's like, but if you go infantry, this will fast track you. And I'm like, oh, sweet, we're getting somewhere. He's like, yeah, you go infantry, 2-3 years, you apply for Ranger school. If you get accepted, then you go to Ranger school, then you go Ranger battalion, then you do that for a few years, then you put your package in for Green. Same story as the Navy. So I'm like, all right, 6-7 years before I'm doing anything cool, right? I'm like, beat it, nerds. We left there, and I was like, Coast Guard, Dad, let's keep walking. Went right into the and Marines. I didn't even consider that because obviously being 18 and always wanted to go in the military. Yeah. Like, those guys are idiots. Okay. Cat's out of the bag. Jerry's a Marine. He'll get into that later. That's why he can't spell. But so I didn't even consider them. Right, blew past the Coast Guard door, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And at the time, my sister, who's 2 years older than me, was already in the Air Force. So I was like, kind of like at an impasse. I'm like, I don't want to do the Navy. I don't want to do the Army. It's gonna take way too long to do anything fun. And then we ruled out the other 2 branches. There's one left. There's Air Force. Didn't even consider it. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to college. Better start, working out that liver.
Bummer, dude.
Right? And, so of course, my sister, 2 years older, she's in the Air Force. I'm just graduated high school. We have a good relationship, and she knows my struggles. And she's like, hey, so I was looking up special operations, and I found this pamphlet, and the Air Force has something kind of like Navy SEALs. And I'm like, cool. I'm still going to college, because you're a chair force, you're in the Air Force, you're a pilot, you hear all this garbage,
So yeah, can we pause for a second? Because I hear that a lot too, and I think this is going to surprise people. Like anybody that I've talked to ever that was in any other branch of the service, like the redheaded stepchild is always the Air Force, right?
100%.
It's always the Air Force. So did you already know this at this point? I mean, I think I just heard you clown on the Air Force, previously.
Oh yeah, I knew their reputation.
Okay.
I also knew the Coast Guard, which is why I went past it.
Okay.
Well, the military branch?
Air Force?
Coast Guard.
What?
Coast Guard?
Coast Guard?
Military branch?
That's still to be determined.
No, I love all my guys. The girls, okay? I'm fucking
Okay.
Space Force is where it's at now.
All right. So Sis tells you that, hey, they might have some special operations in the Air Force, and you're like, nah.
No. So here I am, doing college applications, and I'm looking for them in the mail, return letters, and I see one from my sister. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever, open it up, because back then, there's still snail mail, and there's this pamphlet, and it says USAF Combat Control and Pararescue, and I open this up, and I'm like, whoa, there's dudes jumping out of planes, there's dudes coming out of the water, with camo on their face, and all these cool weapons and shit, and I'm like, what? So I go over to the dial-up internet in 2003 and jam that in, and
AOL.
And I was just blown away. I was starstruck, right? I'd never even heard of these guys. I just said Air Force Combat Controller. I bet 98% of the audience has no clue what that is, right?
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yep. And so kind of like JP and I were just talking business a bunch over dinner, and we're talking about marketing, advertisement. It's because there is no marketing or advertising for combat control. Nowadays, there's a couple things out there, but again, we can get into that later.
Nobody's doing any movies or
Right.
Or on combat controllers or
Whoa,
games.
Whoa. We got one movie.
Which one's that?
Transformers.
Oh,
Bring the rain, says Tyrese with his red beret.
look how proud Brian is. So proud.
Hey, I'm
By
not,
the way,
not necessarily proud. I'm just saying we got one.
Transformers
we got one.
holds up, though. It's a great flick. Okay.
So anyway, yeah. No, my colors are coming out. So I'm like, all right, cool. I guess I'll go to the Air Force recruiter. I showed the Air Force recruiter the pamphlet, and she looks at it, and immediately I can tell she's never seen this pamphlet.
Huh? Where'd you get this?
And I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be a nightmare. Anyway, long story short, the Air Force in 2003 at that time was the only branch of the service that allowed you to go direct to their special operations training and start right off the bat. just how I explained earlier, all the other branches wanted you to do the whole workup, which I get, and there's merit to. And then fast forward to, I don't even know what year, like 2000, somewhere in the ballpark of like 2006 to 9, all the branches went to what the Air Force was doing with combat control and pararescue and said, hey, you know what? If you guys want to come in and be immediately like slotted for a BUDS class and you freaking pass, cool. Everybody come apply. And if you don't, you're back to the needs of the Navy. So every branch, Green Berets did that too. So you can sign up today, currently. Again, it happened sometime back in that 06, 09 range. You can sign up today to go into any job you want. And again, you're kind of at a disadvantage, right? Because you don't, because imagine like the Army, if you went infantry for a couple years, Ranger a couple years, then you got all those years, you're gaining experience, you're gaining knowledge of the military and its workings, knowledge of the Army, you're getting all these skills. So there's merit to it, right? And then by the time and I don't know if this is I know it's one of the reasons. I don't know if it's the main reason. That also would make a more mature special operations force, right? If you had guys work up in the ranks, so they join it, let's say 17 or 18, and they do 6 years before they can be a Green Beret. Let's just say that was the fast track before this faster program came online. Well, now you got all a bunch of 26, 27-year-old and higher, more mature teams, right?
Which seems smart to me because your pimply 18-year-old ass is ready to be
100%.
Right, ready to be there right now. You don't have the patience for this.
100%.
Let's put me in, coach.
100%. So what drove that change to where, and I don't think everyone emulated the Air Force. I think the Air Force is randomly so undermanned and nobody knew about combat control pararescue that they just had that program, and I guess it was working. Apparently they kept it. But not everybody didn't emulate them. It was just the needs of the war. So the global war on terror like completely just skyrocketed, right? Iraq, Afghanistan, all these things. And so everyone, the military is like, okay, we can do one or two things. We can lessen all the standards so we get more guys through and we get more special operations teams. Or we just say, hey, anyone and everyone can apply right at the recruiter's office to be special blank.
So let's talk about that air combat controller pararescue because in what you just alluded to there, what was the need? And I'm going to tell you what I think it was, and you tell me if I'm right. Maybe
please
work this out. A lot of shit going down in the Middle East. A lot of people on the ground, and you have all joint forces, right? So you've got Navy, Marines, not the Coast Guard, right? Right, the Army, and they're all doing stuff, and they're all working together. They're all going to the same places, and there's a lot of crossover. Communication wasn't awesome at the beginning of all this, right? And so a lot of times there was friendly fire because you had one branch or one unit that was doing one thing that wasn't communicating with the other thing. And this was all evolving during that time, no? It was all evolving during that time. And so you've got, let's say, some unit from the Marines over here on the right and some unit from the Army over here on the left. And they're in the shit and they need air support. Meaning they need the fucking big guns to come in overhead and lay down some stuff so they can get the hell out of there. So the Army's calling that shit in, but they don't recognize that the Marines are just over here to the right? And maybe they don't have the same skill sets to communicate or talk to what's going on overhead, which obviously can become very, very problematic. I have no knowledge of this, so I'm sort of making a guess. But I'm going to guess that they needed people that maybe were a little bit more in tune with what was actually happening overhead, right? Working within the branch of the Air Force who's maybe, again, supplying that overhead air support. And so they needed people on the ground that could talk to, communicate with all the people at all the times, and importantly, obviously, the people overhead. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, so you hit a couple things. So combat control in its inception came to be because of all of the missed drops to include equipment and personnel and bombs not hitting their targets and just going willy-nilly, specifically in Vietnam, but also prior to. That's where combat control came to be, and we started as pathfinders. So there is a current job in the Army as a pathfinder. I don't know exactly like all the things they do, but they do a lot of that like battle tracking and like making sure things are in the spot it's supposed to be in. Right. So the Air Force, oh man, I'm trying to summarize this because you can go so far into the weeds with the history of all this stuff. So combat control used to be the pathfinders, and then that was back when there was Army Air Corps. The Army and Air Force were not separate entities. Then the second they broke off, Army took the pathfinder And Air Force said, well, we have guys that can do the same as what you can do, so we're going to name them Combat Control, right? So Army, Air Corps, and Air Force split. Now it's the U.S. Army, United States Air Force. We adopted Combat Control. They kept the Pathfinder name, and they continue to do Pathfinder things.
Okay.
And then as technology evolved, because 2001 and the invasion, a GPS weighed 5 pounds.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And it was as big as a freaking MacBook
It was a
Pro.
It was a backpackable like item, right? You can wear them on your wrist now. My watch is a GPS. So, as technology increased, as bombs got better, as bombs finding the targets got better, just based on the technology, now they're like, all right, we need somebody to help control and harness this spike in technology of now we have air superiority. We can put a bomb through a window at 20,000 feet from like 8 different aircraft. Well, can they do it? What if there's weather? What if there's 8 different ground? Like, how does that one aircraft know about the Marine unit you're talking about the Army unit, about how does that aircraft know that? So you're absolutely right. You got a small part of it, but the part you are guessing at, you're correct. Does that answer?
Totally. Yeah. Right.
So then the war kind of morphed combat control, not necessarily the war, prior to the war, in previous other engagements, the Gulf War, Desert Storm, all those things. Us being an Air Force entity, it was just easier for us to go liaison with aircraft, right? Because we're on an Air Force base that has jets and planes that have bombs, and the Air Force is the taxi cab of all the other branches. So like you think of Navy, you think of ships. Army, you think of tanks. Air Force, you think of planes. So we are the taxi drivers. So we have other branches have cargo planes. We have Marines. What do Marines have, Jerry?
They just go for a ride.
They have boxes of cranes.
If they're lucky, they catch
They
a
walk,
ride.
they hump. You know.
And for everyone listening that's not military, like this is exactly how guys from different branches talk. So we're not just being dicks to each other. Well, we are, but where was I? So pre the war, anyway, Combat Control eventually evolved into a special operations entity, and it's been one ever since. So now, me as an Air Force guy, I go attached to a SEAL team, Green Beret team, freaking any 3-letter agency, anyone that would be overseas doing stuff, right? Will attach to them, and I now bring the capability of airlift, airstrike, artillery fire, naval fire, like anything that flies through the air that's larger than a human can carry that impacts somewhere really far away, right? Does that kind of encompass everything? So now I'm the force multiplier. We talk about force multiplier with a handheld flashlight. Now I'm the force multiplier on that team. So now a team of 10 can go into a village of 100, and you have 8 aircraft overhead with thousands of pounds of munitions and thousands of bullets on their jets, and like now your 10-man is like as strong as if you had like 1,000 guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think it's important to note here, like, this is not something where they just put you on the ground and you're like in the rear with the gear. You're with the team. You're an operator on the team. You're doing the same things
Correct.
team is doing. So
And just like
if it's breaching and clearing, that's what you're doing.
yeah. I'll use the example of like a medic, because that's more, I think more people can relate. So a medic, say a special for a Green Beret medic, right? If nobody's shot and nobody's harmed and he doesn't have to do any medic stuff, what's he doing? He's not just twiddling his thumbs, right? So say the team is clearing a village. They're going door to door, room to room, kicking them in, breaching, shooting people, not shooting. Like, they're doing all these things, right? And then until somebody gets shot or somebody gets injured, that medic is doing special operator, special forces, or just operator things, right? Which is just all encompassing. And we can go down the laundry list of qualifications that special operations gets and has. So me as an Air Force guy, I have to attach to them. And then I don't always have aircraft overhead. And if I do, I'm not always dropping a bomb. So what do I have to be able to do everything they do and hang and be an asset to the team, whether there's aircraft or not.
Right. And
So-
yep.
Are you just are you with Air Force only when you're doing this, or are you with other
I'm
branches?
never with Air Force.
Okay.
Right. So it used to be like when the war first started, it was one PJ, right? So a special forces medic, special operations medic, and one combat control would attach to whatever team, whatever special operations team, right? And now the PJ is the primary medic, and I'm the air guy, even though we both run through the house with him as well. So now that alleviates one of their guys that was the medic. It alleviates him now to just be assaulter. An assaulter is just an overarching term for you're not doing your specialty duty, you're doing your common duty, right? So teams would just snag Air Force guys because Air Force doesn't have their own, and they're the only branch that doesn't have their own special operations entity. They do now, and let's not get into that because it's another 2-hour podcast about what the Air Force has done with Air Force Special Warfare. Like, that's now a legit term, and it now encompasses special reconnaissance, combat control, pararescue, and TACP. So, but we still are not running unilateral missions, right? A SEAL team, they're all Navy SEALs. A Green Beret team, they're all Army Green Berets. There is no, a team of 15 PJs just assaulted a compound in Somalia. Like, that's not a thing. Like, we're onesie-twosies farmed out to the other branches. And that goes all the way back to what I said earlier, how the Air Force is the taxi cab of the whole cert. Like,
right.
The Air Force is the redhead stepchild, and that's where that term comes from, is like, all the other branches just pick and pull from the Air Force. The Air Force doesn't do anything unilaterally by itself on its own. Like, maybe air refueling mission for other Air Force assets. Like, yeah, that's kind of a unilateral. They do that on their own. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, like, ground stuff, they don't do any of that. Other than onesie-twosie, and that's us. And
you've been doing that. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, so I did 10 years active duty. So, so all the way back, we got down that long rabbit hole. Joined in 2003, did 10 years, got out of active duty in 2013, and then went straight to the Guard. Not a day break in service. Went straight to the Air National Guard. My current team is based out of Portland, even though I live in Las Vegas, because I'm a part-time guardsman, Air National Guard.
That's how it all works, right?
Yeah, so I can live here, and then I have, so many days a year I have to commit to doing work and training with them. So,
and essentially that's all you've done since you were that 18-year-old kid.
Correct. That's it.
Which explains a lot today. I think JP and I got that. Like, it explains today, like the day that we spent today over in the CQB stuff, the knowledge and how fluid it was for you, and almost automatic. It was pretty impressive. I mean, you've been doing it for 20 years. Fair?
Like just hit 18.
Yeah,
essentially. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, dude. After today, I was like kind of surprised that like you were Air Force, because I was like, this motherfucker moves really well through all this shit, and I don't think Air Force when I think of that.
Yeah, 100%.
So even JP's clouding on the Air Force.
And dude,
no, I just don't think of that.
I'm not even upset, because that's the fault of the Air. Who runs Air Force IG account? Like, Jerry, run that shit. They're terrible at marketing, horrendous at it, dude.
Followers.
That's
I'm
right.
telling you. I will get them followers.
What Brian said, he didn't train with them
Right.
all the time. He trained with SEALs. He attached to SEALs. He attached to Green Beret.
The most elite, most highly trained forces in the entire world, right? And you have to be able to seamlessly fit in, right? Mm-hmm. And not be cumbersome and not be the outlier. You need to be an asset to the team when you show up, which there is a whole nother set of skills beyond, calling in bombs, calling in, talking or communicating, shooting guns, whatever else. There's a huge social dynamic that needs to happen. Who am I going? Who am I with? Who are these guys? Where do they come from? And understanding the dynamics within those teams, within those different branches, how to go up the chain of command, who you should be talking to, who you shouldn't be talking to, those kind of things. Again, building a whole nother set of skill sets that even the highest level operators that work in these teams might not necessarily have to develop, because they're with the same group of guys or same group of operators for a really long time.
And
that's unique.
Therein lies the blessing and the curse of combat control and rescue. We don't unilaterally work with the same guys for years, right? So when we attach onesie-twosies, again, blessing and curse. It's a blessing because we bring the experience of, like, I've been with a recon team, I've been with a Norwegian SAS team, I've been with the Brits, I've been with blah, 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 and we show up to the SEAL team, and you have all that experience. So there's very seldom time where the SEALs or whoever you're with does something that you haven't seen before.
Right.
And you can't just be
But they don't know that.
Oh, yeah, 100% they don't know that. So it's a blessing and a curse, because that's the blessing, and the curse is, well, I run with these guys for 6 months, we build blood brother bonds, and then we leave and never see them again.
Right.
For the most part.
Right, but the other thing is like protocols are different, right?
Yep. Every branch has their SOPs in different ways.
Frameworks are a little bit different, right?
So slight things are off.
So you got to be very flexible.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I've always wondered that with you, B-Dub, because I know that you've trained with different special operation groups, and every branch has different procedures. And how would you adapt to that? Like, did you have a workup with them prior? Did you know that, hey, I'm going to be with SEAL Team X, I'm going to be with Group X, and okay, they train differently. They even do CQB differently. Like, how did you train to do that?
So best case scenario, which you always strove to achieve, is I get in the country. We all get farmed out all over the freaking country of Afghanistan or Iraq, wherever we're at, Africa. And you get to your team, and it's cool, man. You're going to sit out on the first, like, month of shit, and this dude's going to spin you up. The dude that, like, sprained his ankle or whatever, and he's going to spin you up on the SOPs. Like, legit.
Who's super
like,
happy
there's
about
gotta
doing
be,
that, right? You're taking my spot. Like,
exactly.
this is awesome.
First off, this fucking Air Force guy. I'm pissed because my ankle sprained. Now I got to sit and train you. Like, it's not train, but, spin you up on the team's SOPs. Like, hey, we do it this way. Okay, got it. Cool, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. That's the best case scenario. That rarely happens. The ops tempo is insane. It was like, hey, there was a period in time in Afghanistan where the owner of the whole entire country of Afghanistan, the general, whoever at the time, wrote, you cannot go outside the wire on a mission without one JTAC and one medic. So there was a time where they had to have one of us. So I'd fly in, get dropped off on my team. They'd be like, hey, man, we're leaving in 2 hours. We're getting on that other helicopter. Pack your shit. And it's like, okay, cool. So now you're just behind the power curve trying to fucking learn.
You're just getting briefed on the helicopter on the way
And I mean,
out.
the whole time on the helo ride, you're chattering in your ear like, all right, man, we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be here, blah, blah. We got this, blah, blah. So, like, that's how it typically, the ops tempo was insane. And I mean, that's why I did 10 years active duty. Like, I don't want to compare myself to, like, an NFL football player, but can they do 20 years at that elite level, right? So I did 10 years of 6 months on, 6 months off deployments, and I was like, bodies destroyed, brains fried. I'm like, I can't do this enough. So, but I wanted to keep my foot in the door, so I went guard, right? And I had that passion, that love, right? Like you with the fitness and GP and everything, like you get a love for that. You're like, I want to leave that, but I need a break, right? So it's kind of one of those things. I think we got a little off topic.
No, I don't think we did
Serious
at all.
question.
No, I think you asked a great question though, because that leads into kind of the last question I kind of have for moving on, which would be, that is at that kind of a tempo that you're operating and in all those different very dynamic situations, you're not being put there to be sitting around somewhere. You're going in to fight, right? So you're not fighting people that are sitting still and not fighting back, right? You're putting in a lot of high risk situations. That's what you signed up for. That's what you wanted in the first place. I mean, can you tell us about any of the really crazy shit you got into?
I'll think of some. to spit out at some point.
Okay.
On the spot.
Let's come back to it. We'll come back to it.
But to tie the original, like when you called my name, you were talking about my background, and then the tie into triple feed. So like Luis kind of hit a little bit. The three of us met at a instructor course, and you guys were already friends, correct, Gerry and Luis?
Yeah.
You guys were already
we
friends.
already knew each other.
But not how long before I came in the picture?
Well, he's Mexican, I'm Mexican, so we were probably the same family.
I knew him when he had.
Did you guys swim across together?
Yeah.
Followers on IG.
Oh wow.
He helped me build my brand. Triple Feed's my brand. Just to let you know.
It's single feed.
I'm the
Here
owner.
we go with the single
I'm
feed.
the owner.
I knew him when he had like get 1,200.
Oh yeah, I had like nothing. Like honestly, and even to the day, and I'm not.
I was working full time with the
Gotcha.
company, and his team would train with us, and that's how I met him.
All right.
But yeah, I've known Gerry for
Quite some time, yeah.
So us three assholes ended up in the same course and just
Yeah.
And it was by
Boom.
chance. It was by
Chemistry.
chance too.
by chance, 100% clicked, and then we exchanged information. And then I'm sure there was like a time where we didn't talk, and then met up again at some other event, or you remember, and then as we started just seeing each other more and more, it just kind of forced, kind of like how this all occurred. Like we just kept seeing JP, and we're like, what the fuck's up with this guy? Like I always see
I had
stories,
no idea you were in my
200
state,
stories
dude.
a day, and we
No
keep
idea
seeing
you were in
him.
my state. I'm like, where's this guy from, dude? Like, I don't know him. I was actually ignoring you on Instagram for a while. I'm like,
Oh,
why are you texting me? I don't know you, dude. Like, this is weird. This is really weird.
That's all right. So that covers Bryan, just his background. I mean, obviously very different, right? We don't have to say anything different than that. I mean, it's very, very different background. So moving over to Gerry, you've got an even different background. Walk us through it, man. I mean, we know how you guys met now, so take us back.
We'll elaborate more on how we met, but
Yeah. Believe it or not, contrary to what you just said, it's not that much of a difference in the background that we've had. I also grew up in California. Family of two immigrants, both La Frontera de Mexico, from Tijuana and Rosarito. So mom from Rosarito, my dad from Tijuana.
More worried watching.
And that's what's funny. And I was born in the States. My family ended up immigrating eventually the right way. They came over, they got work visas, they worked their asses off, they worked in the fields, they worked in factories. They both had 2-3 jobs at a time. I never got to see my family. I was always at home, either with my older siblings. Like we grew up poor. We grew up dirt poor, but I didn't know I was poor. I just knew I had shoes, a roof over my head, and and I had food. And I was like, okay, that's just a typical Hispanic family growing up in South LA. From there, I kind of knew that I wanted to do law enforcement from a very, very young time, and most of it came from the area that I grew up in. I grew up in a very high crime area, like right next to Compton, a city named Paramount.
I know Paramount.
Yeah, Paramount's it's a if you break it down, Paramount's more of an industrial city.
It's west of Downey.
It's south of Downey.
South, okay.
Yeah, south of Downey, which is literally the city adjacent to Compton. Right next to Rancho Dominguez, right next to Long Beach, right next to Norwalk. So it's a 2-by-3 mile city, really small, but extremely populated, and the majority of it is Hispanics. It's mostly Hispanic. So all the people that I knew in that area were all gang members. All gang members. They grew up in and out of jail, juvie. The cousins that I grew up with directly that lived in the same apartment that I lived in were in and out of juvenile hall all the time. Drugs, fucking doing and when I say drugs, I don't mean just weed. They were doing hardcore shit. And my dad and my mom used to whoop my ass when I used to hang out with them. Whoop my ass.
Good.
But as a kid, I'm like, I want to hang out with my cousins. Right. I want to hang out with the kids. I don't want to be locked up in the house. This is boring, dude. But then I started getting a very bad distaste towards stuff like that. At a very, very young age, I got mugged a bunch of times walking to school. This is me in second grade walking to school. In second grade. You're how old in second grade? 7? I can't math well either, but 7 years old, and I'm walking to school by myself. Different times, obviously. I would not even allow my 11-year-old kid to go to school, even if I could see him walking to school. It's just the way it is. But back then, parents are like, hey, I'm going to work. Here's your lunch, and
see you later.
I'll see you tonight at 7 for lunch or for dinner. So different times, I'm sure you were kind of the same. You and I have talked about this a lot. And during those times, I got into fights. I was hanging out with the wrong crowds, and I started seeing how bad it was in the area. And I would get beat up. I would get mugged by gangsters, and the cousins that I did grow up with. The older I got, the more I noticed this is going to be a very bad decision if I continue working with them, if I continue hanging out with them. And then one time when I was really young, one of my cousins, he goes, hey, we're going to go to a friend's house. And I want to say I was 9 or 10. He was like, we're going to my friend's house. He was 2 years older than me. And he goes, hey, carry this stuff. And he gives me something. And I look at it, and it was an ice pick. And I go, there's no ice where we're going. And he goes, just put it in your pocket. It's cool. Don't worry about it. I'm like, all right, cool. All right. And then this is 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, walking down, we get hemmed up by local sheriffs. Code 3, turn on their lights.
Bunch of 10-year-olds out of what time of night?
10:30, 11 o'clock.
Right, and then in that neighborhood,
right? In the hood. And we're like, okay, hems us up. And I had the ice pick in my hoodie sweater.
This is not going to end well.
And I have it right here tucked in. And when he said, hey, put your hands on the hood, I did this. And for some reason, at 9:10, I go, okay. And the ice pick flies 10 yards that way.
Shit.
And the lights were on, siren was on, so he didn't hear it, he didn't see it. Get hemmed up. And I remember he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing out here? You should be home. You should be ashamed of yourselves, blah, 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 blah. And my cousin's just giving him lip. You cop.
Right.
You pig. And I'm looking at him fuck, why am I hanging out with this guy? This is my blood. This is my cousin, legit cousin. But I'm fuck, he's gonna get me in trouble, dude. And cop comes up to me, he goes, how old are you? Like, where do you live? Like, I'm like, oh, I live over there. All right. Throws us in the back of the squad car, and he drops us off to each individual house. I didn't get caught.
Well, he
with that
takes
accident.
you home.
He takes me home. Talks to my mom and dad. He goes, you know, he's out and about. He's, you know, doing bad shit, and you need to keep a watchful eye on him. Obviously, my mom and dad kicked the shit out of me
Yeah.
that night, and that's when I kind of got like a lot of respect for cops. I'm like, oh, okay, like I need to step away from this lifestyle, and that's what I want to do when I grow up. So that was like my first real taste of like law enforcement.
So that's interesting. Like, I mean, that's a pretty intense situation. I mean, what you did with your arms really probably could have dictated what had happened with you for a long, long time, right? So you dodge a bullet, and the bullet is under like really kind of not so great circumstance, and I think that could influence you one of two ways. It's interesting that it influenced you in the way where you wanted to know more about being a police officer versus like, fuck these guys, like they're just out ruining my life at 10 years old.
And right? I think also it was how he treated me, that deputy. Like he treated me he scolded me. I was a young kid. He scolded me, rightfully so. But then he said, let me just take you home and let me have a word with your parents. And I think that like I grew even more respectful towards law enforcement after that.
I wish parents would allow this to happen to their kids more often, like instead of protect. Well, we probably get into that later. But
I'm actually glad to hear that though, because
Yeah,
I personally know a few people that give cops a bad rap, and they have their own experiences to say that, you know. But I don't feel like enough people have stories like the one you just told.
Well,
that's really cool.
I mean, that's
at least
just
they don't tell them.
Yeah, that's what
probably
I'm
don't
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So fast forward a little bit more. My mom passed away at a very young age. I was only 12 at the time. So my dad became very, very, how do you say, like overprotective of me, like super overprotective. So I didn't even get to go out anymore. You know, the hell with going out to friends' house. He would drop me off at school. He was super, super overprotective. My sister came back into the family. Not that she was gone, but she had been married already. She was a lot older than I was, like 13, 14 years older than me. So she came in and she kind of became the mother figure for us, helped us around the house, etc. And I started noticing that my cousins, the same cousins that I used to hang out with, were again in and out of jail, were just doing drugs, were just really, really, really bad, to the point where one of them is now in prison for 3 counts of murder. One of them is dead. The other one's a drug addict. Another one like committed atrocious, felonies, for the good of their gang or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not going to follow this anymore. I'm not going to follow this path. I can't do this.
So I got a question, man. So you've made this decision consciously, or at least in your 10-year-old brain or 12-year-old brain.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be like that. Is it a combination of things? Because clearly your cousins didn't get the same message.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you just said there was some pretty serious shit. I mean, dead, in jail, in prison. That's no way to live your life.
No.
Right? So what was the difference?
I think a combination of a few different things. So one, my mother passing away. I had a really young brother as well that I kind of had to look after. My pop's kicking my ass quite a bit, but I know it was out of love. Like, he would whoop me, but it was out of love. And I would learn from my mistakes. And the fact that, I don't know why, I think it has to do with my mother passing away at a very young age, that I was able to mature faster, and I was able to look at somebody's mistakes and go, nah, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to follow that lifestyle, like peer pressure or not. I don't want to follow that lifestyle. I think my mom's going to be very embarrassed with me. If she was around, she'd probably kick my ass. Like, let's step away. Let's look at the bigger picture. Like, I have to make my dad proud, my brother proud, my older siblings that have been raising me proud. Like, yeah, that's not my lifestyle. I need to walk away from that.
Yeah, got you. I mean, there's a respect level there, right? And you're also forced to take on responsibility, forced to be accountable to your actions, and whether that's being picked up by the sheriff's deputy, being taken home, or getting an ass whipping from your dad. One way or another, there's actions and there's consequences.
Correct.
And the consequence for you was, if I don't look out for my little brother, right, then nobody's going to look out for him.
Yeah.
Right. And, or if I fuck up, my dad's going to whoop my ass. Neither of those two things are good.
No, not at all.
Sorry. So it drives decision making in a little bit of a different way versus mom and dad protecting you all the time or trying to solve your problems for you, and or not allowing you to be exposed to the things that happen in the very real things that happen in the world, and then you're right outside your front door.
Yeah.
Right. That's I mean, that's powerful, because I think it speaks largely to who I know you are at this point, and I haven't known you that long, but man, I mean, that's just another one of these examples of people struggling early, and you look at that in the end as a blessing, right? That you had to struggle that way. Like, you had to get fucked up. Like, you had to make those mistakes. And whether you were allowed to make those mistakes or not, you or whatever, however you want to look at that, you were forced to be accountable to those in some way. And you come out the other side and you have choices to make, and that's on you. And you choose to continue to fuck up, or you choose a different path.
Well, what ended up happening, this, I'm going to fast forward. I was 16, 17 in high school, and I was still exposed to a lot of the stuff that we talked about already. And I told myself, okay, when can I join law enforcement? I was like oblivious to what age you could join law enforcement, like what it takes. I thought it was like, you sign an application, here's your gun, here's a badge, here's some training, and there it is. And then I later found out, I'm like, no, you have to be 21 to join to law enforcement. It was particularly in California, or I think it's nationwide actually. And you have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to have some life experience. It's not like they're going to pick up a librarian's going to apply and, okay, yeah, you go to the academy. Like, they want some kind of background. Kind of, yeah. Well, we'll get into that later. So I said, okay, well, from when I graduate high school until 21, what do I do with my life? Like, I've already been exposed to so much crap, and if I don't have something that drives me towards that end goal, like, I'm going to get in trouble.
Caught up in it.
I'm going to get caught up in it, and I don't want to stay here. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I started talking to my friends, and my friends like, join the Marine Corps. And I was like, what the hell's the Marine Corps? Like, oh, it's the military. I was like, oh, like the Army? And they're like, no, it's the Marine Corps. I'm like, okay, like, where do we go for this? Oh, we got to go to a recruiting station. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, sure. I had no idea, like, what the Marine Corps was. I didn't know anything.
Wow.
I just knew the Army and the Navy, because my cousin had joined the Navy when I was younger too. But that's all I knew. Like, I knew there was Army and the Navy. I was oblivious to everything else. So I went to a recruiting station. They were busy. Went back home, and then recruiters started showing up at my house, and the dude was wearing dress blues.
Pretty sharp.
You're like, oh, cool, dress blues. Those are cool looking.
Young, impressionable.
Yeah, young, impressionable. That's what it was. And it's a ploy. They want to impress, the kids and whatnot. And I'm like, oh, that's the Marines? Like, okay, like, what is that? And I talked to the recruiters. Name was Sergeant Pedraza at the time. He took me to the station. He took actually like 6 of us from high school. Like, we're all 6 friends that we knew each other. We went to the same classes. We all grew up in Paramount. We went and we signed up. And at 17 at the time, you still needed your consent from your guardian or your father. So I told him I wanted to sign up, and he says, well, I need your dad to sign on this. I go, okay, well, let's go talk to my dad. My dad's going to be totally fine with it. And my dad goes, que la chingada no, which means hell no. And I'm like, well, why not? He goes, well, no. I already lost your mom, and I'm not going to lose you too.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, how the hell are you going to lose me? I'm just going to join the military. And he goes, no. The Marines, you go and die. I'm like, I was still oblivious to what the Marine Corps was. I just thought I was joining the military. And I didn't know, like, there was jobs and different occupations and MOSs. I had no idea. And I told him, okay, well, here's your ultimatum. You either sign when I'm 17 and you give me consent and I'll be happy, or I sign when I'm 18 and I will never forgive you for this.
It's like that.
It was just like that. And he looked at me and goes, all right, let me chew on this one. And then the next day he signed away. He signed away. He goes, here's the thing. I'm going to go to church and I'm going to pray for you, and you better not do anything stupid. I go, okay, cool, yeah, whatever. I'm going to join the military. I want to get away from this. This is stupid. Like, this lifestyle is stupid. I want to get away from it because ultimately I want to be a cop. And I don't know why he was okay with me being a cop, but me not okay with joining the military. It's like really weird.
right.
I'm like, Dad, do you not know? Like, it's pretty dangerous out here. So I went and I signed up, I joined, and then 9/11 happened like 3 months after
So
I had
this
signed my
catches us
contract.
up to the dates, which was going to be my question.
Exactly. I
Like,
had the same question.
because, you know, being oblivious to Marine Corps and military and all that stuff, yeah, pre 9/11, there wasn't much, unless you were paying attention to what was going on in, you know, in Iraq through Desert Storm and Desert Shield, but it wasn't getting sensationalized, right? And certainly we hadn't had an event like 9/11 yet to wake the kids up to what was really going on over there. I mean, I was hyper aware, but
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Afghanistan was already going on in 2001, though, right?
Yeah, one.
Yeah. 2001, Afghanistan was already happening, but hey, I didn't even know Afghanistan was a place, you know, at the time, let alone the Marine Corps.
I think a lot of people in the same situation, man.
So
I
that
think they only know it for a certain way it is now. Like, I'm 47 years old. I'm literally old enough to remember how fucked up it's been forever, right? Forever. And you have to know U.S. history, I guess. But if they're not teaching you that shit in school and you're not getting that from your parents, like, how would you know?
Yeah.
All right, okay. All right,
So I joined and got to the point where the recruiter goes, well, what MOS do you want? I go, well, I had just looked up what the Marine Corps was, and I go, oh, infantry, cool. That's what I want to do. And I had already done my ASVAB.
ASVAB,
Yeah, did my ASVAB. I scored pretty decently. And the recruiter goes, well, you qualify for every job. You got a pretty good ASVAB score. He goes, you can do whatever you want. You can do intel, you can do comms, you could do motor T, you could do this, you could do that. You shouldn't do infantry. I go, no, but I want to do infantry. He goes, no. Like, I was a comm guy, and that's something that, you know, is very applicable in the civilian world. Like, do you plan on doing this for the rest of your life? I go, no, I want to be a cop afterwards. He goes, this is just a stepping stone for me to not get in trouble anymore, and also maybe learn some life skills, because I have zero life skills outside of what I've done when I was young. He goes, no. You want to do what I did. You want to do comm, or you want to do something else. You could do intel. You could do this. You could learn something in the military besides just be infantry. I go, no, I want to be infantry. He goes, no, I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not going to let you do it. And I go,
why?
okay.
Because he had a quota to fill?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, in hindsight. I don't know if that even exists in the military. Is there quotas for MOSs? Okay, so I guess there is. Yeah. So that's how oblivious I was to it. And I go, okay, well, I'm going to join the Army. It's literally like down the hallway.
So now you're pulling the same shit you pull on your dad?
On my dad. I go, I'm joining the Army then.
It worked once.
Yeah.
It's the same shit you tried to pull on me on the jiu-jitsu mat earlier, dude.
No, I was pulling guard. Is what I was doing. That's different. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to join the Army. And I walk out, and he runs out. No, Gerry. Okay, I'll tell you what. You want to join the infantry. Okay. Chew on this. Go open contract. And more than likely, they'll choose you to be infantry. Well, what I didn't know is that open contract is whatever the Marine Corps wants you to do, whatever their needs are. I'm stupid. I'm young. I'm 17. I go, will it solidify a position in infantry? He goes, you'll have a high probability of joining the infantry.
Bullshit.
I go, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know.
I know.
I didn't know. I didn't know shit.
I know.
I go, okay, so you're not letting me join the infantry, but you're letting me go open contract, and I have a chance. Remember that? Remember Dumb and Dumber? So you're saying I have a chance.
I remember. It's only the top 5
You're right. So that was me. That was me. I go, so I have a chance, right? He goes, oh yeah. You have a really high probability that you're gonna get chosen to be infantry. I go, cool. I'll sign up then. Signed up. Went to basic. And I signed up in 2001, July. I left July of 2002. So 9/11 happened during that time. It happened after I had signed up. So I didn't join the military because of 9/11. But it did, like, once it happened, I said, okay, yeah, I'm going to the Marines. I'm going to do what I need to do. And then I go to boot camp, and then I end up going to MCT. And MCT.
What is that?
MCT is just it's not infantry. It's not infantry. You learn like basic rifle skills and basic like land nav, but it's like right after boot camp. And then at the very end, when you graduate MCT, which is, I want to say it's like a month long, they give you your MOS. They call you, okay, Munoz, you are a cook. Scott, you're going to be bulk fuel. B-Dub, oh, you're going infantry. Perez, oh, that's me. Ammunition. What the fuck is ammunition? What do you mean ammunition?
Wait,
ammunition tech.
So you did do the general open contract?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
he
you
went-
say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
so he
missed that.
did. Yeah,
I
so
did.
he went open, thinking that he was going to be infantry.
Thinking that I was like, oh, I'm going to have a high probability to do infantry. So I was pogue as hell in the Marine Corps, just FYI. But
Wait, you have to explain pogue. You know what that term is?
I've heard the term. Somebody else used it on the podcast a couple weeks ago, but it wasn't defined.
so pogue is people other than grunts.
Okay, got you.
So yeah, it's a derogatory term, but it's not derogatory to
So
me. I don't give a
interesting.
shit.
This story, this guest that I was talking to, she was in the Army, and her dad was Special Forces. He was a sniper, Special Forces, and he went down. And by the way, mom was actually a Ranger. Airborne. Sorry, she was airborne, one of the first, and maybe the first female to actually be accepted. Anyhow, the long story short is like dad went down to the recruiting office and basically bullied the recruiter into making sure she got what he thought she should have, which ends up making her a pogue, but turns out that's what she probably should have been doing anyways. So anyways, the naive kid walking in the recruiter's office not knowing and sort of being influenced or not bullied, I'm not even gonna say that, almost tricked.
I was
I mean,
definitely tricked.
I mean, this
100%
sounds
I was
pretty
tricked.
fucking shady,
No.
right?
Yeah,
You're
I
talking
was
about a kid's life, right? Yeah.
Oh, he didn't care.
So what is
Quotas.
munitions?
So ammunition tech is we pretty much handle nomenclature lots of all munitions pertaining to infantry, artillery, tank units in the Marine Corps, with the exception of air assets.
Okay.
So we didn't deal with the air side of the munitions. We had other techs that were specifically for
Got it.
aircraft munitions. So all the ammunition that I dealt with was for either workups or for deployments. So I was in charge of, we went to Redstone Arsenal, which is a base, an Army base in Alabama. And that's where we learned our MOS designation. And then from there, I was attached to a unit where we just helped with the workups. So the first year in my fleet time in the Marine Corps, I spent in 29 Palms, which sucks, by the way. It's the West Coast armpit of the Marine Corps. And middle of nowhere, nothing but, hills have eyes, people living out and about. It's a really weird place. I think they had like one restaurant, one bar at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Character
life
builder.
experience. Exactly. And I was just sick and tired of being there. And OIF had just kicked off.
So basically what you're doing is you're giving the ammunition to the guys that you wanted to be.
Yeah.
So you're
exactly.
basically like, here,
It was,
have a great fucking time doing what I signed up hoping I was going to
it was
be
a
doing.
slap in the face, dude.
Yeah.
It was a complete slap in the
gonna be
face.
tough.
So we had guys, half of the guys and gals that were in my unit my first year in the fleet got selected to go to Iraq for OIF 1. And I'm like, I was trying to volunteer. I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to go. Since I'm not infantry, let me at least go on a deployment. And it was like, no. Again, a big fuck no. I'm like, fuck, okay. So I stayed behind. And most of the infantry battalions in 29 Palms had already deployed, come back for rotation, et cetera, et cetera. My master sergeant at the time, I somehow, after a year of being there, convinced him that I needed to deploy somewhere. I needed to deploy with an infantry unit so that I could go overseas. Because at that time, I'm like, now I need to go do something. I need to get out of here. Like all my homies are going to Iraq or Afghanistan, and I'm here in the rear. And I need to do something before I get out of the Marine Corps, because I knew that I wasn't going to do more than 4 years. I said, I'm after
You
my
got
4
to hit
years
that 21 and get out.
and I get out so I could do law
Right.
enforcement. But I wanted to have a little bit more life experience, I guess, whatever. So I finally convinced my master sergeant to get me orders to become an ammo tech at an infantry battalion on the East
So you're
Coast.
getting closer.
So I'm getting closer to what I still
Another
not going to be able to
600 miles,
do.
but
Yeah, still not going to be able to do. But regardless, he got me orders, and I ended up going to 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines out of Camp Lejeune. So I get there, I'm 19 and a half, and 19 and a half, almost, 20, 19 and a half, 20.
Okay.
And they go, hey, you're in charge of all the ammunition for the whole battalion. I'm like, how many is in a battalion? It's like 1,000, 1,200?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot, like 1,200 Marines. And this is Alpha Company, Bravo, Charlie, Weapons Company, H&S, everybody that's in the battalion, to include any of the support element of people. I was put in charge of all their ammunition. I'm like, I'm a 19 and a half, 20-year-old kid that barely knows how to do any of this, and I have to deal with everybody's ammunition.
Right.
And we're talking like millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars of ammunition.
Assets. And people that you're dealing with at very high levels, I'm sure, right?
The only people I had to answer to were the company gunnies, the company lieutenants, and my gunner.
I mean, these are the guys that are making the decisions about what's happening on the battlefield, right?
These are the guys that are. So let me rewind a little bit. So the ammunition that I dealt with for the battalion when I was still CONUS here stateside was all training ammo, and not until I actually ended up going to Iraq with 1-2 that I have to deal with all the ammunition for each individual company,
right?
For actual field use or for wartime use. But I was out there with every single company during their workups, supplying them with what they needed. But I only dealt with the top dogs of each company, I guess.
Okay.
And again, I only answered to a handful of people: my gunner and my battalion commander, which was a lieutenant colonel.
So you're dealing with people at an executive level,
Correct.
right? So you're a grunt, so to speak, but you're right. You're dealing with the upper echelon. So there's a different level of communication.
Correct.
Right. Brian's already identified that you can't spell or write an email, so clearly the military didn't teach you that.
Oh no,
I don't know where you got that from.
Didn't teach you that.
I was really good with Excel. That's
Yeah, right.
about it.
Okay, so spreadsheets for days.
Spreadsheets for days, yeah.
Spreadsheets.
That's also facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not good with numbers or Excel spreadsheets now.
Interesting, the learning that's going on.
So, again, fast forward a little bit.
Yep.
We ended up going to Iraq 2005, 2006 with the 22nd MEU. So we actually got on naval ships, passed through the Suez Canal. Before that, we went to Djibouti for a little bit. They did some workups. 22nd MEU had 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, some RD units, or battalion, some tanks with us, some other elements like special operation elements, mostly recon Marines, either force recon or I don't remember if it's force recon or recon, which is a little bit different. And we ended up going to Iraq. Originally, we weren't supposed to go to Iraq. It was supposed to be a Westpac tour. We were supposed to stop at all the different
Big
countries,
ports,
big ports and whatnot. And they said, nope, we're going to Iraq. And we stopped in Kuwait. From Kuwait, we got on airplanes and the Air Force. Thank you, taxi.
You're welcome.
Flew us into the Anbar region.
Okay.
And then we went to our separate FOBs for almost 6 months.
All right. So you finally got your deployment.
I got my deployment. I wasn't infantry, but I was attached to an infantry battalion. So I guess it was better than nothing.
Yeah. So
came back after that. Knew that I wanted to. I was at 21 already at the time, almost 22. So I said, okay, life experience. I'm at least 21. Let me apply for a police agency. And the only police agency, even as a child, that I ever wanted to join was LAPD.
yeah.
I was broke as hell, though. Came back broke as hell. Didn't have any money. And I said, I got presented with an opportunity. And they said, hey, why don't you go overseas again to Iraq as a civilian contractor this time? I go, okay, doing what? And they go, blowing shit up, dude.
Okay.
I'm like, what do you mean? They go, you're going to be working with EOD guys all the time. You know ammo. You know how to separate ammo, what blows up, what's volatile with what. You know that red phos doesn't mix with blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I'm like, all right, cool. How much do I get paid? About $15,000 a month. And I'm 21. I go,
Show me where to fucking sign.
let's do this. I go, I'll do this for 6 months. I'm cool with that. LAPD Kuwait. I'm cool with that. I need some money. I need to be a little bit more liquid. So I went over for 6 months, and all I did was work with EOD guys, like Air Force EOD, Navy EOD.
So EOD, explosive ordnance disposal,
Correct.
for people that don't know what that is.
Correct.
So
So went out with the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers, had a contract with the civilian company called EOTech, and all we did was demo shoots on ammunition and confiscated firearms, guns, you just name it, that was confiscated from either the Taliban or from
something that was uncovered in some village somewhere.
Somewhere that, they weren't supposed to have. So we would do demo shoots every day for 6 months. Legitly, we were just blowing millions of dollars worth of ammunition. And I'm like, how the hell are these guys getting all this ammo? And later to find out it was like a lot of like shady shit. And that's how they're getting all their ammo and stuff. Like we would go into these, they call them magazines. They're pretty much bunkers, underground bunkers where they store ammunition. And when you look at it from the top view, it just looks like little hills.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. So I went in there, I'm looking up, and on top, you could see the writing like on the pillars, and it says parts for bridges. And I go, parts for bridges? Oh shit! They use this. They're illegal funds or illegal equipment that they use, or material that they would use to build these things. Looking at other boxes, and they had boxes of MP5s lined up, brand new MP5s lined up everywhere that they somehow gotten into country.
Somehow
Got into country. We're opening up other boxes of ammunition. They had Nazi ammunition. They had shit
World War II.
World War II, like Nazi stamped ammunition. I'm like, dude, Iraq was like packed full of all sorts
Wild
of
stuff,
craziness,
bro.
dude. My eyes were opening up. I'm like, holy crap, dude! Like, Saddam had some crazy shit over here, dude.
I'm sure you heard all the stories about walking into like entire like
Rooms
normal sized U.S. bedroom,
Yep.
stacked floor to ceiling with $100 bills
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and gold bars.
Gold bar, yeah.
Insane story. Like read any of the books from the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan. Out of control.
I didn't deal with that. I dealt with
Just the
weapons,
ammunition
and the ammunition.
And
But
now
I'm
with all the firearms experience, like that is more shit to me now. You know.
I was like, holy, I'm looking at this. I'm like, I wish I have it. This is a full auto MP5, dude. And they had
in the box.
crates
Yeah.
beyond the eye could see of just brand new MP5.
And you blew it up.
And I had to blow it up.
Damn.
Because it was confiscated. I was like, oh, can I just take one?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he needs one.
Yeah. How much would one of those be worth?
An OG one from 2006, dude. I mean, come on, dude. Like over $12,000 probably. Brand new in a box
I
like
thought
that.
they were closer to like 40.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
And you blew it up, Jerry.
Oh, no, I didn't just blow one up. I blew up hundreds of them. Okay.
Damn.
Wow.
It was crazy shit, dude. I'm telling you. Just the stuff that I would see, the stuff that was supposed to be used for humanitarian purposes. There was one crate. It was funny. I'm looking at a box full of crates, and it says typewriter parts. I go, we're blowing up typewriters? And I open it up, hand grenades. I'm like, what the hell? Typewriter parts?
Yeah,
These are
boy.
not typewriter parts, dude. I'm like, oh, you shady little guy, you. Anyway,
So you're working as how long does the contract work? Or
so
go?
there were 6 month stints. You would do 6 months, and then you had the choice to come back or go to. They would, if you wanted to go to, I don't know, Dubai, or if you wanted to go to London, or you wanted to go anywhere, they would send you out there, and you could have fun, and then come back.
So you're
spend all
making
your hard-
$300K a rip. 15K a month for 6 months.
We're not really counting here, but yeah, sure.
All right.
I'm making good money. I was making good money per trip.
That's why people do it.
That's why people were doing it. But this is back in the day when like contracting work overseas was actually paying good money. I don't think they make that kind of money anymore, right?
I mean,
Depends on what you do. I
let's
guess.
assume Afghanistan's still rocking and rolling right now. Obviously, it isn't. Yeah, no, it took a huge dive.
Yeah.
Probably a 60% hit from like 2001 to 5, and then from 5 to present, it probably took a 60% dive.
Wow.
So most of the companies that were out there with us, because remember, I wasn't doing like gun stuff out there. I was blowing shit up.
Blowing up
So
guns.
we had contractors protecting us. We had like Triple Canopy. We had Blackwater. We
Gotcha.
had
The
Cochise.
names. Yeah, the names.
Cochise was another one, right? Cochise, I think, was another one. We had guys protecting us, and all they did was pump iron, eat, and watch the wire for us.
Right.
And I was doing the more technical stuff, was blowing stuff up. But it was paying really good money, and I was like, all right, this is cool. You know, I get to blow stuff up. I get to hang out with dope people. I get to work out and eat for free, and then I go home after 6 months. Makes lots of money and go home. And I made my money, and I said, I don't need to really be here anymore. And when I made that choice, as I was signing my end of contract out there, Saddam got captured. And I'm like, oh, I definitely don't want to stay here then. I definitely want to leave country. Yeah. So I left country, came back, applied for LAPD.
Yeah, there's a transition here at some point. Right?
Yeah, applied for LAPD, and they said, all right, it's going to be a little bit of wait. I said, okay, I'm just going to live my life. I have money in the bank. I'm just going to relax for a while, finally relax for a while. They call me a few months later. They tell me, hey, you passed backgrounds.
Going through the next part of the process.
Yeah, go through the next part of the process. I did my interview, my panel interview. I did my polygraph. Did everything that I needed to do.
Mammogram?
Did my physical, mammogram too. Okay. I did that. I did 3 of those actually.
Passed that one already?
I passed. Well, failed the first one, passed the next 2. And then go to do the medical portion, and there was a hiccup. And ended up finding out that I have Wolff Parkinson's White syndrome. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that?
I don't know what that is.
So it's basically when you're so the way your heart I don't know anything about the anatomy too well, but the way your heart beats, it's not like you think about it and it beats, right? It just, your brain sends electrical pulses to your heart and it beats for you, right? I mean, that's what that's the layman's way.
Yeah, your nervous system takes care of it for you.
It just takes care of itself. So apparently I have too many connections to my heart, and my brain sends too many messages or too many pulses to my heart, and it beats irregularly from time to time. This is something that you could see in an EKG.
And you'd never had one before, so you wouldn't have known.
I did. I had one in the Marine Corps. Remember, before you go into the Marine Corps at MEPS, they make you do an EKG. Well, I was told that this is something you're born with. So I guess the Marine Corps didn't give a shit. And they just said, you're going in. You're going in. You're just another number. You're going in. LAPD disqualified me, though. They said, no, you can't go because you're too much of a risk.
Your
liability. You could croak at any time. You know, you could do some physical stuff. I was like, dude,
Here's that other hard no.
I was like, dude, another hard no. I was like, dude, I just got back from Iraq. I did another tour over there. I was in the Marine Corps boot camp. I was like, I'm healthy, dude. I'm young. I'm 21. They said, no, you have to get a waiver somehow, and we're not going to help you with that. So for 6 months, I was like spending my own hard-earned cash to try to find a doctor that would sign off on a waiver, do stress tests on me, et cetera. And then eventually the VA said, I went to the VA in LA, and they told me, we'll do a stress test on you and we'll sign off if you don't die, I guess. So they did a stress test on me. They said I was perfectly fine. I was healthy. I submitted my letter of recommendation to the head physician for LAPD Medical. And 3 days later, they called me and said, okay, you're good. You could continue the process. But it was just all these hoops that I was jumping through.
Such a long road to just get what you want. I mean,
yeah,
such a long road.
Joined. I got an acceptance letter literally a few weeks after I passed medical. Mm-hmm. At the time, because I thought I might not be joining LAPD, I was working for Home Depot.
No shit.
For 3 days. And then I quit on the 3rd day because I got that phone call from LAPD.
Wait, were you working in the store or the parking lot?
Yeah.
I was working. Yeah, I was. Actually, you want to hear something funny? Home Depot sends you to a 2-day training seminar where you learn all the HR stuff. You learn how to stock stuff, and so I went to 2 days of training. 3rd day that I show up to start actually like, oh, you're going to be assigned to paints and hardware or whatever. I'm doing my paperwork, my W-9, and then all of a sudden they go, my phone rings, and I go, it's LAPD. And I go, hey, sir, I know it's only my first day officially here, but I quit. And they're like, what? I go, I got accepted to LAPD, and I don't want to work for Home Depot.
Right.
And they're like, okay, sure. They had to pay me out cash because of the 2 days that I actually worked. And 2 weeks later, here I am in the academy.
Right. Man, finally.
Finally, yeah. Finally what I wanted to do, yeah.
Through Home Depot.
Through Home Depot, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realize that would be on the resume. I'm going to be honest. Like, I didn't see the Home Depot thing coming.
He knew, yeah.
So you've been basically in law enforcement ever since, right? And at one form or another.
Yeah. There was a break in between, and I'll get to that. So 2007, joined LAPD. I went to the academy, did all my stuff, was assigned to South Central for my probation, passed my probation. From probation,
You're back home.
I'm back, pretty much back home, yeah. After probation, one of the sergeants had hit me up that did time with me during probation, and he was already working a different unit. And he goes, "Hey, Jerry, we're opening up this brand new specialized unit, and all we want is like young cats, like fresh out of probation." I go, "Okay," well, and I already knew this sergeant. I really loved him. He was a really good guy. He took me under his wing, and he goes, "Do you want to do this?" I go, "Well, what do we do?" And all you do is obs work, dude. Like, you don't handle any radio calls. You don't have to answer to anyone except for us and the watch commander. And all you do is stop assholes all day. Like, so you assign, where are we assigned to? Like, oh, that's the catch. Like, captains bid for you. Like, we work in 21 geographical areas in LAPD. There's 21 different areas.
It's massive.
And each captain says, "Oh, we have a problem on this corridor. We have a problem here with homicides or with carjackings or whatever." And they bid for us, and they send us to those problem areas for 3 days.
Sounds like Brian.
Sounds
like Brian's job.
It was fun, dude. Let's go. Yeah, it was fun. So for a year and a half, I was assigned to this specialized unit, and all we did was every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the really nice times of the week, during night shift for 10 hours at a time, sometimes 12. They would assign us to the problem areas of LAPD. So wherever there was the highest crime for that geographical area, they would assign us there, and all we did was ops work. So, hey, there's a group of assholes right there. There's some gangsters over there. Oh, hey, that car looks shady.
It's very proactive police
all
work.
Proactive police work. All proactive
Which
police work.
I'm sure affords itself a lot of cool things and cool experiences, but also you get yourself in a bit of trouble there. I mean, yeah.
That's going to be one of my segues in a second.
Yeah.
But yes, 100%.
Okay.
So get assigned to that, and about a year and a half into it, the unit had already been 2 years old.
They got to rotate you out of there, right?
Well, no, not necessarily. They just disbanded the whole unit.
Oh, okay.
Because the mission of the chief at the time
Changed.
had changed, and he said, we need to beef up patrol. So here's 115 officers that are about to be out of a job. Not like out of LAPD, but out of their unit.
Special unit, yeah.
We go, okay, well, where are we going? There's 21 geographical areas, and I don't want, freeway therapy. I don't want to drive an hour and a half to my location and another hour and a half to come back. And they go, well, put your wish list in. All right, cool. Well, I want to work in Watts, or I want to work in South Central. So I put my 3 areas in, and I was one of 4 guys out of 115 that ended up going to where they really wanted to go. Very few got their location.
Things are starting to look up for Jerry.
Yeah, right. So I finally went somewhere that I wanted to go. So I ended up going to Watts. And from 2010 until 2017, I worked patrol in South Central.
I think this is interesting, like, that people might find this really odd that people want this kind of work. Like, there's a drive to do this work. And that might be an interesting or a hard mindset for people to understand. I mean, just kind of transitioning maybe back between Brian and you, Jerry. Can you talk about that mindset a little bit? Like, and maybe help people understand what it is that's driving this want to, I don't know. What is it? Like, what is it? What's the feeling? Because it's not something I can talk to, so I don't know.
It's hard to antiquate, really. Like, it's, for me personally, it might be different from B-dubs, but I grew up in a very rough neighborhood, and maybe I had some distaste towards like criminal activity, and I said, no, I want to, maybe, as cheesy as it sounds, make a difference.
I don't think it sounds cheesy. I mean,
yes,
I think people want to say that it sounds cheesy, but no, I mean, you had some experiences, so I think I get it. I think I can try to, anyways.
That was one of the reasons, and the other reasons. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's kind of an adrenaline thing. It's like I want to be in. I want to be in this shit. Like I want to.
And a big part of it is conditioning. Now, that's not all of it, right? Because you see random good Samaritans run into a gunfight that have never even like handled a gun, right? So it's not all of conditioning, but it's a lot of conditioning, right? So you're training, right? We were talking about how we were using UTM's ultimate training munitions today in the CQB house, and eventually, if you guys did enough training and whatnot, you would eventually get to a point where you'd have live role players shooting back, right? Or live unknowns or whatever.
Right.
And so when you're getting hit with those things, it hurts super friggin' bad, right? And that's just conditioning you to where, like I told you, examples of guys that would get shot in real life with real bullets and be like, oh, it just felt like a UTM. And they continue to do the job until they get to a point where they're like, oh shit, I'm hit. So that conditioning just of, law enforcement, military conditioning you to go to the fight, conditioning you to enter that room when you can hear AKs racking and magazines being inserted. It's like, that's what we got to do. That's what we've been doing. And you just do it, a lot of it. So conditioning. And then I'd say the other part of it, and again, military application, also I can see in law enforcement, is the guys around you. Like, and again, that doesn't explain the lone random civilian that has never had experience, but it doesn't explain that aspect, but it explains like a military or law enforcement person that has had training under
it's on the teams. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
UTM, if you guys are listening, we need a sponsorship over here. Just FYI. UTM, thank you guys.
Yeah, the UTM.
It's hard to explain. It really is. It might be a mindset thing. It might be a conditioning thing. It might be your upbringing. It could be a number of things. I mean, I'm probably going to be completely different from what these guys have to say. But I wanted to be in an area that was rougher, an area that I'm going to see action, that I'm going to, I'm going to get into things. I'm not out there purposely looking for stuff, but I know that percentage wise, it's probably going to be a little bit worse where I was working than, let's say, I don't know, Beverly Hills or, some places that are just not as nice, I guess. So again, did that in that area for 7 years. Kind of was getting burned out. In the interim time, when I was there, I was doing a lot of executive protection on the side.
Okay, so you had a side gig?
A side hustle. A lot of cops have side hustles, and most of them is like, hey, I have a CCW, and I have my guard card and firearms permit, so let's go work a red carpet event, or let's do some, let's work for a family. It's going to get me a gig every so often. So that was my segue, was law enforcement. For EP was through law enforcement. Go ahead.
No, I'm listening, man. So there's I also hear this a lot from law enforcement. I mean, you just mentioned that a lot of law enforcement officers that are in those maybe more higher percentage areas or higher percentage situations also work other jobs. So they're looking for more work. I mean, that was a term we used today. Go do work. Yeah. Go look for work. And interestingly, as we were clearing rooms, that was the job. Like, go to where the work is. And so, again, it's maybe more of a mindset. So you go into EP and you're doing this on the side, which now is going to introduce a whole new set of things, right? You're a cop when you're out on the street, but you're not an EP. It's much different set of circumstances. It has to be a different mindset. Completely
different. And at the same time, you can't be, you're not a representative of your agency, but at the same time you kind of are, because if you mess up, it's not going to be, Gerry messed up. It's going to be LAPD officer Gerry Perez was in a blah, 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 blah. They're going to throw you under the bus. It's just the way it is. So yes, I kind of represented the department.
People knew that.
People, yeah.
By default, yeah, there's almost a higher level of accountability.
Correct.
To the department, right? To not fuck this up.
To not mess it up, yeah.
Let's not mess this up.
So 2017 came. At the time, I'd already gotten in trouble with the department a few times, uses of force, pursuits. I mean, again, we talked about the percentage, right? The more people you stop, the more people that you get either go to radio calls to or do pedestrian stops or vehicle stops. The higher percentage that shit's going to happen. People that submarine and don't do any work, they're not going to get into anything, right? It just, that's the way it is. So I was constantly, like, for lack of a better term, hooking and booking. You know, I had partners that were very similar to these guys. Like, hey, let's go find the next cool thing. Let's go elephant hunt. Let's go do this. Hey, you know, remember yesterday there was like there's a group of gangsters over there hanging out behind the train tracks.
Let's go
check it out. Let's go do this. We're very proactive. I was very proactive.
Yeah, and gangsters don't want to be arrested.
No, they don't. You know, and so, you know, nine out of the 10 arrestees that we had, they were okay. And then that one had a hair up his ass, and like, okay, the fight's on. So I got in trouble quite a few times with my agency. I got passed up for promotion. I got passed up for a specialized unit, gang unit. The guys there knew me, and they wanted me in, but they
wouldn't touch you.
They're like, no, dude, you have way too many uses of force. You have complaints. I had complaints for, you know, excessive force and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, whatever it was. I'm like, dude,
yeah, he arrested me.
The guy was punching me. Yeah. What am I supposed to do? Like, right, okay, whatever.
I can't imagine how tough that is.
So I kind of had to walk away from it all. I'm like, I'm just going to walk away from it all for a little bit. Like, I'm just going to, maybe I'll become a reserve officer or something, you know. And a little bit personal too. I kind of started hitting the bottle a little bit harder. I started drinking. I'm like, okay, I just need to stop. I need to walk away from it all. And at the time, my personal relationship with my ex-wife was taking a fucking hit.
Right.
Dude. Like, one of the biggest reasons why I have an ex-wife now, which, by the way, Raquel, I love you. You're an awesome person. She's actually my best friend, my ex-wife. She is the mother of my child, and I respect her for that. But at the same time, like, her and I are like best friends. But at the time, we took a really big hit, and we ended up getting divorced. So PD took a big hit on me. The bottle. I was in a very bad rut in my life.
It was a common tale, no?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You weren't alone.
Yeah.
You might have felt that way, but this is a pretty common tale.
It's a tale as old as time, man. Like, law enforcement, military, soft units. The divorce rate is how high, dude?
Out of control.
Like, ridiculous. I think, like, Navy SEALs, dude, their divorce rate is like in the 90s.
Yeah,
or
you're
something.
doomed, right?
It's
like,
ridiculous.
It's just, it's not going to work.
And law enforcement is notorious for two things: for boozing and for divorces.
Right.
Like, it's especially if you work in a really, really high speed area. So ended up getting divorced. In hindsight, it was probably better for everybody involved, my son and her, because now we're like the bestest friends in the world. And we're like co-parenting better than anybody that you could ever think of. Left law enforcement for a little bit, but because I had EP experience, I got picked up by a family, and I've been working for that family full time now for almost 7 years. And this will be the segue between us. Working for the family full time for almost 7 years. I would travel with him, with her. I would do the advances. I would do everything for them. I was doing everything for them. And this was early on in their EP program as well. And I ended up running into somebody that I knew with LAPD that now works at a different agency in a higher level. And they just asked me, they said, there's a position open for reserve officer. Why don't you apply? I go, well, my post certificate is still active. It's only been less than 2 years. So I'm still, for those of you wondering, post certificates, it's your certificate to be an active police officer or reserve officer. It was still active. It's usually good in California for 3 years. So I was still active, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll apply. And I applied, and they called me in, and here I am again, like I was 10 years ago, going through polygraph again, going through the backgrounds, going through credit checks, going through the board and everything. And eventually, about a year later, I got hired with another agency. And now I'm a reserve officer for a small agency that loves me, that takes care of me. They respect me. They don't treat me like a number. And I get to do police work again, but that's only it's
very part-time.
It's a very part-time thing, but I still wanted my foot in the door, kind of like what you, I still, like, my heart was still in it. I loved it. I still love it to the day, but I just can't do it full time anymore.
Yeah, those transitions are tough. I mean, I think that's in a lot. What I hear, particularly from the operation side of things, is like walking away from that after all of those things, the same, almost at that level that you're working at, high speed areas or special units or, a combination thereof, and then stepping into, like, all of a sudden you go from, we were talking about throttle control today, and when you you hit that hallway and moving too fast, right? Like slow it down. Hard to slow down when you're ready to get into the fight, right? All the time, right? How do you throttle back? With I guess the specific being, how do you transition out of that? How do you walk away from it altogether? Very, very tough thing to do.
The vast majority of military and veteran suicides is after they get out. Vast majority.
Because they don't know what to do with their
Because
life.
you can't go from walk, you just fell off a 100-foot cliff, right? I mean, everything they known for how many years they were in is just no longer, right? So Gerry and I chose this path, whether it was luck, coincidence, I don't know, chose this path where it kind of gave you a 45-degree slide. Where you could kind of figure shit out before you hit the
Where
bottom.
you go, which has brought us here today.